Welcome back to Sunrise. Two hot topics now, and new polling has revealed just how tight our election could be. For the first time ever, opposition leader Peter Dutton has drawn level with Anthony Albanese when it comes to preferred Prime Minister. The results also show voter concerns are changing, with law and order overtaking climate change as one of our top priorities as we look to head to the polls later this year. For their take, let's bring in Minister for Cybersecurity, Clare O'Neill, and Nationals MP Barnaby Joyce. Good morning to both of you. Clare, why do you think the Prime Minister's popularity is falling and Mr Dutton's is rising?
Well, Nat, it's really common coming into an election period to see polls tighten up like this, and there's a really clear message here. Politics can feel like an academic exercise sometimes. That time is over. We are about to have an election in this country, and it's time for Peter Dutton to come forward and tell us what his plans are for the Australian people. What we know is that for the last 3 years, while our government has focused exclusively on cost of living relief and helping Australians manage a difficult economic period, Peter Dutton has voted against pivotal measures like the tax cut that's gone to every taxpayer, the energy bill price relief that's gone to every household. So maybe Barnaby can enlighten us this morning. Peter Dutton's had 3 years to come up with his good policy ideas. I haven't heard any of them, and it's about time he comes forward and explains himself.
Well, Claire, whatever people are hearing, they seem to be liking it, because all the polls are showing that the coalition and Dutton are increasing.
I understand that, Nat, and what I want Australians to know is that, the period of the last 3 years is where the coalition have nailed their colours to the mast. They've voted against tax cuts for you in your household. They've voted against energy bill price relief. What they have said about their agenda is that they want to cut $300 billion from government services. I've looked at things like the indexation of the pension and other payments that people really rely on. Well, time will tell that, Nat, but the truth is that setting aside the polls, the poll that matters is what happens on election day. We are in an election period now. It's time to stop stuffing around and tell us what it is that the Liberals will do if they win that election.
Barnaby, one of the interesting things here is that law and order is roaring up the charts. Cost of living, housing, health and social care, managing the economy. Crime and social order is beating out the environmental concerns. Why do you think that is?
Because first and foremost is the Labor Party have been there for 3 years, and cost of living has got vastly worse. Their so-called power plan, their power lift, actually went through the parliament, just made no difference. And they haven't been focused on people and cost of living. They've been focused on rubbish such as making the world reliant on intermittent power, putting up wind turbines, solar panels, looking after Antonio Guterres from the United Nations, not looking after Australians. And what we've seen also with law and order is if you've got fire bombings happening around town, and if you've got synagogues being burnt down, and if you've got people running around saying things that are basically inspiring death on people, then people start to wonder about law and order. And out in the regional areas, they never start worrying about regional areas till around about election time. We actually have people who just get their house, they get broken into and beaten up, and then 6 months later they get broken into and beaten up again. They get their car stolen, burnt out. It's just, it is pandemonium. And, the sooner that Australia realises that people out here are saying, well, you better take this seriously and you better do something about it. It's not black against white. It's not white against black. It's criminals against families. And we're over it. Yeah. And that's why that races up as well. But it's cost of living. If people can't afford it, people are going to have to live in their car because they can't afford their house. And everything's attached to the price of power. If you got the price of power wrong, if you want to make people in Paris happy, sure, knock yourself out, go out and do it, but people here will turn off to you.
Yeah, you're right about law and order. I was in Victoria over the summer, and it is all anyone could think about. The police were telling friends of ours, buy a club lock, because it's the only thing that's going to save your car. Moving on, and some of the world's most famous original old movies, books and TV shows could be lost as the Australian Classification Board seeks new powers to censor archaic and out-of-step content to align with modern community standards. Classics at risk of edits include Crocodile Dundee, Mary Poppins and Gone with the Wind, with books by Roald Dahl, Enid Blyton and Dr. Seuss. They could also be under review. Claire, do you think films like Mary Poppins and books like Enid Blyton, which I grew up on, should be censored in 2025?
Well, absolutely not, Nat. And you've talked about some of the children's books, but the second you mentioned Crocodile Dundee, are you kidding me? One of the greatest movies ever made. Nat, just to put this into context, a board that's, public servants, not the government itself, not the politicians, have said that they want some additional powers over classifications. The Communications Minister will review that, but I myself are not in that camp of rewriting things that have been pivotal to my childhood and to yours. I think these are fantastic works of art, and I love reading some of these books to my kids, and I'll continue to do so.
Barnaby, what do we say to the censors?
Well, I'm going to show my bipartisan view. I think Michelle Rowland's is a pretty good minister, and I don't think that she's going to put up with this garbage. We're sick of people in quasi-executive roles telling us how to think, what to do, what to believe in, and this is another thing. J.K. Rowling's had to deal with this, and now we're seeing it's coming on Crocodile Dundee. I mean, if it's not obviously violent or pornographic or something that the meter clearly tells you there's something wrong, then leave it alone.
Look, thank you very much for joining us today, both of you. Before we go, we just might give viewers an insight into how we set up for the shot. Barnaby, for instance, is in Danglemar, and this is him earlier in the morning in the ad break setting up. He had to go and get his hat, tripping up, basically tiptoeing through the mountains of outback Danglemar, but just so he could be ready for our shot. But that's the lengths he'll go to, Barnaby Joyce. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I've got my bush hat. I haven't got my good hat. My good hat's way down there in the other car. I'll come up and I'll work you.
Gee, that's like a scene from Sound of Music, almost.
Yeah, that's me. Doe, a deer, a female deer, which I'll now shoot.
No, you got to do it in song, Barnaby. You got to do it in song. I can't wait to see.
Maybe next time. See you. Bye. See you next week.
The hills are alive. Thank you, Nat.